Joining us now, MSNBC political analyst and former chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele. Also attorney and former White House special counsel to President Bill Clinton, Lanny Davis. They're teaming up in a bipartisan effort to tone down the negative political rhetoric with the launch of their new company, Purple Nation Solutions. And in an op-ed running in Politico, they write this: the partisan game of gotcha and outright misrepresentations have grown old, and quite frankly, we're sick of it. We urge both the Romney and Obama campaigns to repudiate these negative personal attack ads and instead instruct their campaigns to tell us their ideas and specific answers to problems Americans care about the most. Good to have you both.
Good to be here.
Great idea.
So, who came up with the idea?
Well, it's Lanny.
Story.
Lanny approached me back in January, and he says, I have this crazy idea that, you know, we've known each other a long time.
To tell people not to be crazy anymore.
Yeah, tell people not to be crazy anymore. And you get to a point where you're looking around you and you're hearing and seeing what the American people are really feeling and thinking about our politics and where we are as a country and how we're dealing with our problems. And so he just said, look, I got this idea of, you know, having a different voice in the conversation, and would you like to be a part of it?
And Lanny, you're a warrior, political warrior from the Clinton years.
Sinners can be redeemed.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Meek, I'm not just slinging this, because Joe and I became friends out of adversarial debating during the Clinton impeachment era on Crossfire and other shows. And now I've watched him on this program, and he is speaking and actually helped inspire me. I think he's wrong about almost everything.
Thank you.
But you debate ideas, and you're ready to hear other people's ideas. And Michael and I disagree on almost everything. But what happens in Washington, and you know better than anyone, is that there's a stalemate because people aren't talking to each other.
So when did this start? Why did it start? How do we break the habit?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, you can really probably go back to the Bush v. Gore era of when this whole thing began to break down, where we became red states versus blue states, where it became more partisan, more hypercharged, and it's just been on a downward spiral ever since. And I think after, you know, certainly the 2 years I spent at the RNC going around the country and listening to a lot of the American people, and certainly since then, hearing these voices, particularly in these tough economic times, the American people are looking for something. They're looking for leadership that's willing to have the conversation. It's not about compromising on principle and getting all mushy in the middle and having the kumbaya. It's about what you talk about on this show. I mean, what you just talked about in the last segment about the American dream, the American people are talking about. Our leaders in Washington aren't. They're having a conversation that is disconnected from the rest of the country right now. I mean, we're focused on hearings and, you know, into the Justice Department. We're focused on everything but creating jobs. We're focused on everything but solving and coming up with solutions.
John Heilman, so why doesn't this work? Why is there always the breakdown?
Well, boy, that's a complicated question. I mean, part of the thing that I think there's no question but that our politics are much more polarized than the country is. That's, I think, incontrovertibly true. Right. As a business strategy, though, in Washington, I mean, my question is kind of what's the? I applaud you guys about what your theory about this, because I think it's based on that insight. But what's the market for this? Who's in the? You guys are going to be providing strategy advice, right?
Sure.
You're consultants. So given that Washington, how it operates, how deeply baked polarization is into our political cake at this point, who's going to buy the strategic advice that decides that well, I'm going to buck the trends, guys, because you know, it's you guys have the noble ideas. Let's go chase nobility rather than chase what seems to actually work in terms of getting elected.
Well, I'll start and then let Lanny finish, because we've got good examples to answer your point. I think the business community, largely speaking, has gotten to the point where they've been told, look, you've got to buy insurance. You got to, if you're a Republican-oriented based business, you got to go out and find yourself a Democrat lobbying firm. If you're, you know, and vice versa. So we're trying to say, well, that doesn't really get you anywhere, because all they're going to do is go up on the Hill and lobby what, you know, to a stalemate. So what Lanny and I have discovered is that there is this growing class of businesses out there that are looking for these kinds of solutions. And Lanny's, you know, we've got a couple of examples just going back in terms of, you know, what's been able to happen over the last few months.
So it really does go back to the Joe Scarborough era, when Bill Clinton was forced by the Republicans to sit down and balance a budget. and with great pressure from a Democratic Congress that he had before '94, where he didn't have to do that. And that created a middle position somewhere between liberals and conservatives. We're not talking about kumbaya. I'm a principled liberal, and I believe in raising taxes. And I think there's a place that we have to cut spending, do entitlement reform. I don't know why Barack Obama didn't endorse Simpson-Bowles right from the beginning and preempt the center, which is what I think Bill Clinton would have done, and in fact still wants Barack Obama to do. But we think clients are no longer going to buy insurance on the left and the right. They want solutions. The only way you find solutions is somewhere in the middle.
And you're right, Lanny. You're exactly right. Bill Clinton didn't want to sign welfare reform at the beginning. He didn't want to pass the Balanced Budget Act, but he faced the realities. He had a Republican Congress. He was a liberal Democrat. And we came to the center.
But you guys also pulled back from severe cuts,
and
you found some consensus.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't mean you weren't conservative. It meant you were willing to listen and try to find solutions.
And by the way, we were complaining every step of the way as we moved towards the center. I'm sure the White House had people complaining every step of the way, but we met in the middle, and what happened? We balanced the budget for the first time in a generation. We balanced it 40 years in a row for the first time since the 1920s. We passed welfare reform. We passed a Medicare reform. We passed regulatory reform.
To be fair, Barack Obama has tried, and he didn't have a Joe Scarborough, and he didn't have a lot of people in your caucus willing to come to the table. Boehner met him in the White House and couldn't deliver one vote out of the Tea Party
caucus. Barack Obama owned Washington for his first 2 years, and he misplayed his hand terribly, and that has put him where he is now. If he gets reelected, let's hope he uses his next mandate a bit more wisely than he used.
When he ran, his instincts were really to be much more centrist, and I think that the polarization in the Tea Party movement made it difficult. But I do criticize President Obama for not taking advantage of Erskine Bowles, a good Democrat, and Alan Simpson, good Republican. He had Dick Durbin, a progressive Democrat, supported Erskine Bowles. That was his opportunity.
And remember, back in January of 2009.
Yes.
He had a New Hampshire Senator, Judd Gregg, that was ready to go work for him as Commerce Secretary. And after 2 weeks of seeing how he was dealing with Republicans, threw up his hand and said, okay, I'm not going to work with this guy. This is not the hope and change guy. So
one final point, and what was key about your period when you guys were working this thing was the idea that you work towards consensus. And that's what we're asking folks to start.
Michael Steele and Lanny Davis, thank you so much. Great to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.